My definition of workflow would be a way of managing the approval process within a company. It can be the approval of lots of different types of documents, so an invoice within accounts, maybe a holiday request within HR, and there's lots of things that we can do around that workflow functionality. One of the main benefits I think that our customers are getting from that is being able to, using the audit trail, keep track of where documents are and who's actually approved those.
It could be just gathering documents together as part of a checklist. So instead of it being a manual piece of paper where you go down and tick that you got all these pieces together before you can send that package on to somebody else, that you can gather all those documents electronically and then send them on through a process that's defined within the company as what needs to be done with those documents, not necessarily approval. But information-wise, or even producing something in the end, part of their process is producing a document that needs to be sent out to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting because a lot of people view workflow as many different things, and it's kind of one of our first questions going in is, what do you think workflow is?
Yeah.
And how can we fit in your organization and help you with your problem of flowing documents around your organization?
Quite often, though, I find people use workflow when there's actually no flow involved. So it's not necessarily moving documents around. It's more something that happens or has to happen to a document. So anytime you do anything to a document, that is essentially workflow. And quite often, a lot of the workflows that we implement are just a single action that someone does. So when a document is of a particular status, say it's a new insurance claim, for example, and someone has to do something with a new insurance claim, that can be done as a workflow regardless of what it is, and the different things that can be done can be used to build up the whole of the process. And that could be insurance, it could be a driver's license application, it could be a service document for in fleet management or something. It doesn't necessarily have to have a defined beginning and a defined end and a way of getting there. It can just be sporadic things that happen in the business to documents.
The one thing I find out with our scoping exercise is what it enables a customer to do is to bring a lot of different people from the organization to look at the process they're doing currently. And it gives them a chance to look at that afresh and start from a new point of, what are we doing with these documents? What have we done in the past? What could we change in the future now that we have everybody in the room? Because what I find is that on a daily basis, everybody in the organization is so busy trying to get their work done that they never have the opportunity to step back and have a look at what's actually taking place. So why are we doing these things a certain way? Why have we been doing it this way for 5 or 10 years? And now that we've got all these people in the room, they can kind of sit back and look at the process from all the different levels and come to a conclusion as to maybe we can change this now that we're implementing the electronic workflow and make these improvements as we're installing the system.
Especially where there's more than one department involved in a process, because each department tends to know how they operate but have no visibility of what's going on elsewhere in the process. And so these guys are doing something that actually the guys over there are doing as well, because the guys over there have no idea that these guys have already done it. Just by reviewing the workflow process, you could probably make some fairly good savings before you even start looking at document management. I mean, you add the document management layer and suddenly the whole process is streamlined, and you've got all the time saving as well that comes with that.
Unforeseen possibilities open up to the customer and what they can do with those documents now that they're in electronic form rather than the paper version.
And they don't have to pass it from Department A to Department B to Department C, because they can all see it at the same time now. So they can all get powerful. On and work in parallel.
The flip side to that, if you've already looked at your processes and you're comfortable and confident that the process you're using is the best it can be, we're still able to mirror that and implement the workflow on top of what you already feel is a very good process, and then you still get those benefits of managing that electronically.
If you tell someone you're going to go in and re-engineer their business process, that can be quite daunting. But if you actually say, we're just going to make your existing business process a little bit more efficient.
Yep.
That's usually more acceptable.
I think it's important that when we go in, we get the right people around the process also, not just the management level, but also at the clerk level where they do the work on a daily basis. So we make sure we understand what they do on a daily basis and not just what management thinks that they do.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, we've had situations where we've done the scope of work meeting with the team leader or the head of department and drawn out the workflow process diagram and sent it back, and then you spend the next month touring and throwing where they've circulated it internally and found all sorts of little exceptions that no one realised was actually happening.
The other thing we have to touch on is we've kind of been alluding to documents, but Document Manager can store any kind of file that's generated, so it could be a Word file or video file, and we can have workflows around those type of documents or those type of files, as well as what we've been talking about as historically being paper files around the organization.
When can an order be fulfilled? When can the goods be sent? When can the license be issued? Who issues it? Have we had the payment? And there are some fairly standard things that you would do. For example, you wouldn't send the goods until you've had an order and until the order's been invoiced and the invoice has been paid. And so you can string together a sequence of things that must happen. And if it's, for example, a particular unit, maybe it has to have an independent quality control check done, and you can't send the goods out until the quality check's been done. But in a manual process where everyone's doing their job with bits of paper, it's very easy to bypass those rules, and customer A is on the phone complaining that they haven't had their widget dispatched yet. Why isn't it? I ordered it last week, where is it? So someone goes to the shelf, picks it up, packs it, sends it, and actually the whole invoicing process gets missed, or the whole quality control stage gets missed, because manual processes are easy to bypass and circumvent, and there's no real audit to say everything's been done.
Yeah.
So one of the things that electronic workflow and document management give you is the ability to enforce those rules. So the dispatch note cannot be printed, for example, until the QA person has put their stamp on the document to say that they've done their quality assurance check, or we've issued the invoice, or maybe we've received the payment. Maybe based on things like the value of the order, we can have different people requiring to be involved in the process. And with electronic workflow, you can't break those rules, because that's where the workflow stops until all the rules that we've put in place, like it must be QA checked, we must have had an order, we've received the payment, managing director signed off on my special pricing or whatever it is, we can check that all of those have been done, and we can audit that they've all been done before the workflow is completed.
I think the important thing here also is that it's the business's rules. It's not our rules that we're coming up with. We're working with the business to identify what their rules are, what their requirements are, and help them standardize how that process takes place. So the variation of how I would do the work or Jason would do the work becomes consistent from employee to employee. So especially if you have a large number of employees in the department doing the same job, that they're all consistently doing it the same way, because they're working to the rules that have been defined for that workflow.